everyone is doing English, and I do not just want to do works in Yoruba. I want to tell the stories of the people around me. I want to tell emotive stories of the people in the grassroots, because I feel like it's very easy to tell, even in movies. A lot of people are telling the screen acceptable movies that colorful and all of that. But the people below the pyramid too, they have their stories.
All right. So we are here for episode 3. I think no, episode 4 of Talk with Thandie, the podcast. And today, like I said a couple of weeks ago, I have a guest because the plan was to have guests on this show because I do not want to just be talking to the camera. So we finally have a guest and we are here. I think should I introduce you or you want to introduce yourself?
Well, then it
You know what? I'm
works.
going to say a couple of things and I want you to add to it because I
Okay,
know you like to try to be humble.
I
So
try.
so I do not want you to be humble because I feel like there are some things about yourself that you would be able to say and I would not know. All right. So we're here today with I think you're my favorite poet right now. With my
Oh,
favorite poet, Aremo Gemini, who is also a storyteller, an author, a novelist, is a performer. He does a bunch of things and he does everything. Well, maybe not everything, but he does the majority of his work fully in Yoruba, not the small English Lagos Yoruba or deep Yoruba. So help me welcome Aremo Gemini to Talk to Thandie, the podcast.
thank you so much for having me. I am Yusuf Alabi Balogun,
Okay.
PKA Aremo Gemini.
Yeah.
And like you rightly said, I am a performance poet. I still think I do bilingual poetry, I can still write
Yeah.
in. I mean, I still won a contest a few weeks ago
Yes, I
doing
was actually
English
yeah, yeah,
poetry,
yeah, yeah.
and then I'm a public speaker, a TEDx speaker. I'm an author of Shegilola Romero Gido and Ishekpe. I write
Okay.
scripts. I do
Yeah.
cameos in films, even though my acting career is yet to begin.
Don't worry, it's going to start.
I get involved in stage plays.
Yeah.
What else do I do? What else do I do? I drink water, like you already know. I'm obsessed with water. I think at
Fair.
this point, a Proco doctor should find me.
You should. You should actually.
What else
What
do I
else?
do? I do movie reviews,
Oh,
basically
you
art
do.
reviews. Yes, I've just been very lazy.
Okay.
I do reviews and criticisms
Okay.
of works online. I do cultural commentaries,
Exactly.
and lately I've been putting my eyes into actual cultural curations and seeing how structures can actually be put in place in terms of culture beyond just saying and just
Yeah, yeah,
being
yeah, yeah.
another artist on the stage trying to propagate.
That's actually a lot. You're doing a lot. I hope you're a very rich man.
I try.
Okay, so before we start our actual conversation, since you even mentioned that you do movie reviews, but you're not serious about it, what are you currently watching? What are you currently reading?
What am I currently watching? I've not really watched a lot of the trending
It doesn't have to be the
movies.
trendy one.
Talk about
Just
BTS and all of that. I haven't watched them, and I don't plan to watch them. Maybe when they are on streaming
streaming
platforms,
platforms,
sure,
fair.
I may watch them. But recently I watched Tadio Gidon, Madame Dearest. Is a classic.
Okay,
It's a
what platform
classic.
do you get it on?
YouTube.
Okay, okay,
It's it's a classic. I love returning to classics a lot because they help in informing my perspectives on things. I feel like there's so much obsession with works of this generation, which is
yeah,
nice because I also create from this generation. But I feel like there's always something to pick from the
from
past
works, yeah,
also, and then watching Madame Dearest away from how I watched it back then when I was a kid.
yeah,
There is so much I didn't notice back then. There is so much,
yeah,
even storytelling wise,
yeah.
that I didn't notice then that I feel like would be instrumental in my next writing process. Most likely my plays. And yeah, I write plays. I just haven't
Okay,
published any of my plays, but I hope to do so. One of my targets is to be able to cover the entire genres of literature, prose, play, poetry. At least I have one body of work or
Er,
two there. So at least I can contest with Shakespeare or something.
Shakespeare. I thought you were going to say Wole Soyinka.
Baba.
Okay, fair enough. That's actually quite interesting. But I would love to know what the movie is about, though, because I do. You see this whole thing of visiting what you've watched, maybe when you're even younger or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You tend to then, with your grown mind, then see things very differently. So it's something I usually advocate for, and I probably will watch that movie. So what are you reading?
So I haven't been reading in a while. I've been watching.
I judge you.
I've been yes,
I
actually.
judge you.
Actually, I haven't been reading in a while. I've been watching heavily. The book I want to read is not yet in Nigeria apparently.
What
Even
book
though
is that?
I that is The Years of Blood by Adedayo Agarawu. It's a
Okay.
poetry collection.
Okay.
Even though I had a couple of inputs on the work in terms of glossary
Okay.
because they
Okay.
used some
The
Yoruba
words.
in the
So
works.
yeah, yeah.
Then so I was like privy to the manuscript. But
Okay.
now that it is out, I still want to read it
Yeah.
because definitely there will be a lot of editorials and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think there's still some struggles with Nigerian publishers and poetry works
Brought
being
into
existent
yeah.
here. So maybe when I get that book, I would kick out
Has
of
he
my
started
reading
marketing
slump.
it in Nigeria though?
He has been marketing it online, and I think the Nigerian audience are already like very much aware of it. So
Yeah.
like the moment it drops in the Nigerian market, I feel like a lot of Nigerian, especially
Yeah.
poetry concerned audience
Yeah.
would actually jump at it.
Because I actually feel like the poetry audience is significantly smaller than the novels and the plays audience.
Yes, actually, or maybe the problem is that everyone is recoiling these days because okay, for example, I have a poetry manuscript in the works, but there has been a lot of people whispering in my ears like you better be really ready when you are putting it out because one, even getting traditional press to accept poetry manuscripts presently is war
Okay.
because revenue and how many people are reading it, and then you discover that people actually want to read it. Books are just
Yeah.
expensive.
There's also that. But you
Books are
also can't blame
expensive.
publishers for that though.
Yes.
Producing is quite
Mm-hmm.
expensive now.
Publishing is also expensive work, so everyone just settles for novels, and I feel like we don't even have much place presently. I mean, away from stage plays,
Okay.
like written plays.
Written plays.
I
Okay,
can't
fair
remember
enough.
the last
Yeah.
time I came across
That
any
was written in the last
author
5 years. Yeah, yeah,
exactly
yeah, yeah.
putting out a play. Not to now talk of poetry, but I really do still believe that poetry books should still
Yeah.
come out, and maybe as much as the audience reception matters, because I feel like artists should make money from what they do, but I
Yeah.
feel it's important for the culture, and we
Yes.
cannot keep advocating that people are not reading poetry books when there are even limited poetry books presently. So if
Yeah.
traditional press is not accepting, go and publish independently, or at least pitch to publishers in diaspora. That is what a lot of poets are actually doing right now.
Yeah. I think internationally poetry is more recognized. I don't know what it is. Maybe our poetry is hard to read. I don't know. I don't know what the thing is. But I think when it comes to poetry now, people are warming up to performances, spoken
Yes.
word. So, but when it comes to page poetry, I don't think there are many because even the people in book communities and book clubs and all of that, and then you ask, what poetry collection are you reading? What are you reading that is not a novel or is not a
Yes.
play? And they're like, poetry. That kind of thing. But yeah, I feel like one way or the other is also the audience somehow. But yeah, I think we're even delving into the conversation even before I want us to start. So from me, what am I watching? What am I watching? I just finished watching The Queen's Gambit.
Oh wow.
After how many years? It had been on my list for so long. I just finished watching it. It was wonderful. It's one of those limited series that is so tightly written that you can hardly flaw it, and it's something you can go back to after some time. I'm sure I'm definitely going to go back to it because the artistic work done on that movie was really good.
Oh wow.
And for the book that I'm reading, I'm not even looking at the camera like that. The book that I'm reading, let me see. I'm reading like 3 books at the moment, but which one should I mention? I would mention The Bone River.
Oh, I've
See,
been
I
seeing the
don't know. I don't know
publicity.
if you saw Judas of the Beans video where she said, but this book is not for illiterate. You saw the video.
Yes.
Not be for illiterate. So when I started reading the book, I'm like, I agree. It was very funny, but yeah, it's one of those things. So those are the things I'm currently consuming, and also, just so we have something to smile about, what is like a really positive thing that I would have normally we're supposed to record on a weekend, but since it's like middle of the week, what has happened to you maybe like in the past 7 days that you say, oh, this thing made you smile?
I got accepted in a residency.
Oh,
I got accepted in a residency, and I actually applied with my heart in my mouth. You know, I applied I think a day to the deadline, if not
yeah,
the deadline. So I wasn't expecting so much because these days, genuinely, when I apply for residencies and all of these
yeah,
grants, I always feel like, bro, there are many talents out there.
yeah.
Like you think you are talented, and then you just see 1,500 people applied, and you are like, these are heck of talent. And then seeing myself get picked is like, wow, did I say I good small?
Do you ever get imposter syndrome?
Yes, I do a lot. A
Really?
lot. I mean, every time I thank the universe for the people around me, because really I doubt myself a lot. Maybe it is the industry playing, maybe it's the place of the industry playing mind games on me,
Mm.
or the kind of non conventional works
Mm-hmm.
that I do with language, and how a lot of people tend to
Yeah,
perceive it.
yeah,
It's always very easy for me. Even when my sophomore novel, Ishekwe,
yeah,
came out in
yeah.
September, I was still ranting to a friend in November about how I feel like, oh, it took people actually reading the book and telling me that, oh, the book is nice now, because before I now started feeling like, oh,
You've written
maybe
something
I
good,
did something
yeah.
really good. I was really feeling down. I get imposter syndrome a lot, a lot.
Oh, that's serious. So we that we watch your work and we're like, this guy is really good. Then you think, oh, the artist actually thinks differently. But it's one of those things about the mind, and I really don't know why it comes up from time to time. But it's one of those things. Um, Congratulations on your
Thank you,
residency.
thank you.
Ah, let me answer my own question. Let me see something that made me smile recently in the last few days, because I don't know. You're very see when it comes to negative things. You will remember. Your mind
Actually,
would hold on to it, but you see that positive part. It's really tough. So now I'm even thinking about it. I should have thought about it before the whole thing. You know what? Maybe in the midst of the podcast, if I remember, I will just maybe break what we are saying and then
would
mention
that
it.
have been your stance if I was the one stuck?
See, you are my guest, please.
Double
You're
standard.
my guest. So yeah, first, I know we were kind of already started this conversation before we came in.
Hmm.
I want you to explain your name, Aremo Gemini. First of all, are you twin?
No, horoscope.
Oh, so you have a thing for the your
Yes,
your
June
birthday.
9.
Fair enough, fair enough. But why did you put it in your name though?
So actually, there's a reason.
For someone that is not so religious, I'm like, "Ah, why you then? Why
See
you then,
finish.
please? But yeah,
So I've always been that curious kid right from time.
yeah,
So when I was in secondary school, and everyone was having pseudonyms, and I was writing, practically I've been writing even before I got into primary school. So
really.
yes, I've been writing from the scratch, prose and plays,
What pushed you into
as
writing?
always. So I was that quiet child. I was that child that my dad didn't allow me to relate with children in the neighborhood, because I grew up in Ijora, and then my dad believes, and I actually, growing up, I believe that there are a lot of badly raised children, and that tells on the parents actually.
Okay.
So you wake up in the morning, and the first thing you are seeing is someone washing his mouth with cannabis. And then my dad just feels like, well, I don't born you here, I don't born you here already. But
Yeah.
the largest mistake he would make is allowing you to now
Yeah. To get
relate
mixed
with
up.
these people.
Yeah.
So once I come back from school, I go to my mom's shop. I just have to be inside, watch Super Story, eat dinner, and go to bed. So I had things I was imagining, and the only way I could express those things was to write
Right.
them
Were you
down.
reading?
Yes, actually,
Okay.
I think the first book I ever that I had the memory that I read then was Olarotimi's The Gods Are Not to Be Blamed. And it
Ah,
sparked
such
something
a
in me.
classic.
I just knew that I had to write. Uh,
Once, I think a couple of times, I think maybe once in 2 years or so, I'll just bring up that I'm like, I need to.
it's one
I'll
of the
just read it.
finest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's one of the finest classics ever. And then when I got into secondary school, I was writing certain rebellious things and pasting in schools, and I didn't want them to be associated with me. So I felt okay, let me find a pseudonym that I could
Okay,
write from. And that was when I discovered this whole thing about horoscope,
okay,
astrology, and I felt, oh, Gemini. Gemini sounds like a good name to hide under. So I
okay.
was always writing using Gemini as the name instead of my actual name.
How
And
about Aremo?
yes, and by the time I left secondary school and got into the performance poetry scene, I was still using Gemini
Yeah,
because I was
only.
creating in English. Yes,
Okay,
only. However, when I started delving into Yoruba,
Yoruba,
it felt awkward. Like, why would I say I am creating in Yoruba language? I'm trying to
and you
advocate for the
have a
language,
very,
and then my
yeah,
name is obviously English.
yeah.
So I felt, oh, let me find a Yoruba name. Why not also erasing the already existing name that was fast becoming a brand? Like, a lot of people still see me now, and the first thing they remember is Gemini.
Okay,
So I picked Aremo for two reasons. One, because when a lot of people see me, they feel like, oh, is the first of his kind, is the first person doing something of this nature. But
okay,
then I go back in time and I realize that there are predecessors before me.
yeah,
Maybe they weren't celebrated enough, maybe they weren't appreciated enough,
enough.
maybe some of them even died in obscurity and abject
Yeah,
poverty, but they
poverty.
did a lot of works that we Yoruba creators of this age use as references. We go back to these works from time to time. In fact, a lot of creators still steal from these works without acknowledging them or referencing them.
Mm.
I drink from the sources a lot. So it was very important that I acknowledge that these people existed
What are some of
at
your
some
sources,
point.
though?
Lánrewájú Adépọ̀jù,
Okay.
Ọládàpọ̀ Ọlátúbọ̀sún, Láwùyí Ògúnníran, Fágúnwà,
Mm.
Daniel Ọlọ́runfẹ́mi Fágúnwà, and then there is Epo Akara, there are Batili Alake, there are a whole lot,
Mm.
that ethically when we speak of celebrities,
These are some names I've not even heard of.
exactly,
Yeah.
and then they actually did great works, they did amazing works, but there is so much low appreciation for them, and it's only when you mention them around relatively older people
Yeah.
that they can remember them.
Even a select type of
Yes, older
older
people.
people.
And
Yeah.
then the younger people, especially Yoruba creators, are actually aware that they exist. At least a large percentage of them are aware that they exist, because you cannot tell me you are writing or you are working in Yoruba print literature without encountering D.O. Fagunwa.
Mm.
Is, arguably or maybe unarguably the first person to write, a work, a novel in
I
Yoruba.
think he's said to be the first, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't tell me you are working in Yoruba literature without encountering him. But how well do we appreciate these people or acknowledge them? So, calling myself Aremo, some will loosely translate it as prince. But I mean, for a prince to exist, that means there's a king. And if you translate it as successor, that means there's already an awareness of predecessors. And I want to be able to acknowledge them at the end of the day. And on the flip side of it, I see myself as a lineage charter in my home and where I'm coming from. So I don't have that kind of surname that can open doors,
Yeah.
but I'm trying so hard to build that name
For
for my
yourself.
offsprings, for
Yeah.
generations to come through me, so
Yeah.
that at least they can know that, oh, you're actually related to Yusuf Balogun, you're actually
Yeah.
related to Aremo Gemini, and it's enough to build something from them. So I
Mm.
felt like, oh, I am doing something differently. But of course, that does not mean that everyone who has, passed through my generations earlier, that does not mean that they didn't have effort
Yeah.
too. So I don't want to be that kind of lineage chatter, diminishing the effort
Yeah.
of those behind me. So I
Mhm.
just felt, oh, Aremo, Gemini, and then, on the literal basis, a lot of people see it as, oh, Aremo standing for Yoruba and Gemini standing
For
for
English.
English. But it's
Which
actually
is
deeper than
also
that, apparently.
okay, fair enough, actually. That's actually quite interesting. Because I feel like one way or the other, people just think that okay, because we are seeing this person in this day and age, maybe they are the first to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
that's usually not the case. That's
Absolutely.
usually not the case. Not even in other African contexts,
Mm-hmm.
actually. And I, based on what you were saying, it's like being recognized is also something you look forward to. So you
Yes.
don't want a case where you are doing something different and you're not recognized for what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, if recognition is one of the things that you have in mind for your legacy, to put it that way, then why did you choose to do solely Yoruba, knowing the challenges that we have in the nation at the moment when it comes to language,
So
indigenous languages?
when my dad passed away in 2020, I remember someone called me. I think as at then I was already heavily delving into Yoruba, and then someone called me that it's not enough that you have to, bear family burdens. You are living English poetry, which you're already winning slams, and a lot of
Yeah.
people already recognize you for, and then you are delving into Yoruba, which is like boxing
Yes.
yourself.
Limiting your audience too.
Mm-hmm. But then I feel like the less traveled road is not less of a road.
Mm.
It's still a road at the end of the day. Oh,
At the
maybe
end,
it's less
yeah, yeah, yeah.
traveled. And then there are a lot of people who want to cross certain bridges, but they are just waiting for someone to
To
cross
cross
it.
first.
And then if you are able to
Let's
cross it,
see what happens.
exactly.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, I know a lot of creatives who still write Yoruba poetry, who write, Yoruba novels, manuscripts, but they are not even proud enough to share them years ago. But
But
now they could
now,
actually go on their pages and share it simply because I do what I do.
oh,
And, maybe I do not have all of the, I believe that I do not have, the fullest appreciation and recognition for the level of intensity I put into my craft. But
yeah,
I'm not where I used to be. And for a Yoruba author in this age where there is so much, oh, you are boxing yourself, you are limiting yourself, I've actually gotten into some rooms that you wouldn't expect someone working with language,
yeah, to get
to get
into.
into. And it's very easy to say, oh, maybe it's the quality of work and all of that. But I feel like there's a place of positioning too. And certain things that we have now that, the likes of creators like Lanrewaju Adepoju
Mhm.
did not have. Because if people like Lanrewaju Adepoju existed in, a digital
Today,
age
yeah.
like this, these men will be billionaires. They would make sick money off their works because they are good. Lanrewaju Adepoju could reel off 30 minutes, 40 minutes on a track rendering poetry, and these are people that you could say their conventional education there was very much limited. So
Yes.
it was not like there was a lot of writings being done. I still have to write my works,
Hmm.
then memorize it, but they were
Yes.
doing it from top of the
The
head,
head.
and they were going 30, 40 minutes, and there's nothing you can discard off it at the end of the day. Everyone is doing English, and I do not just want to do works in Yoruba. I want to tell the stories of the people around me. I want to tell emotive stories of the people in the grassroots, because I feel like it's very easy to tell, even in movies. A lot of people are telling the screen acceptable movies that colorful and all of that. But the people below the pyramid too, they have their stories. The
Hmm.
children under the bridges, they have their
I
stories.
think we get to those, but like very few of
Very
them.
few,
Yeah.
yes. And I feel like if I tell those stories in English language, you cannot go to Ijora now and then you are trying to sell something to them and you are telling them heavily in English. No one will connect with
With
you. If
what
you
you're
want to tell
saying
people the story of the people in the grassroots, you have to tell it in a language they
that they
can understand.
understand.
And I respect their struggles and their nuances.
Yeah.
And I felt like, oh, maybe this was what I was meant to do. And when I
Mm.
look at my family chain, my family tree, my dad was a tradomedical doctor. He was, an Ifa diviner. And even
Okay.
though my mom was a trader, she's still a trader. She came from a lineage of drummers,
Okay.
and at some point in her life she was a member of a waka trope. Waka is a form of Yoruba drum music,
Okay.
you
Hope
know
you drum
them.
though.
I don't know how to drum, sadly, but I have a drum in my house, and that is, you can put the blame on me, I accept, because they actually got me a teacher when I
Yeah.
was very young to teach me drumming. Like, my uncle literally sent a talking drum
Yeah.
from Kwara down to Lagos. But I just got tired after 3 or 4 days. Like, what is this about?
Funny story. I think there is a school in Lagos that teach how to play the talking drum.
Yes, actually, there are schools
Yeah,
these
there are
days.
schools. Yeah, huh?
Yes,
Because
there are schools
I
these
was
days.
looking for, because this shekere that I got, I was looking for where to get it in the shekere in Lagos.
Mm-hmm.
So I started seeing different things, and then I came about the talking drum, and then it was a school where they
Yes.
teach. They also sell it, and it was a lot of things. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
continue.
There are schools, and I laugh at myself these days because back then
You would have gotten that
I would
education
have
for
gotten,
free.
and it would have, even been a plus
Yes.
to what I do now. But now it's not like I cannot go and learn drumming. But where is the time?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much to do,
Because it
and
will take more effort now.
exactly, and it will take more effort because I feel like as a child, our brain is still at that tabula rasa stage, and as we grow older, we are thinking about
Different
Tinubu, we are
things.
thinking about MTN, and there's so much to worry about.
Fair.
And it's funny because then I wanted to grow up to go to an institution and study law. If anyone told me then, I was writing quite all right, but if anyone told me then that I would ever have to sit with writing full time, I would argue. But look at me now, and maybe now I am still towing that line of law and advocacy through the kind of subject matters I explore in my works.
All right. Okay, so I think now that you've mentioned your education to some extent, I feel like having conversations with you since we started talking, I'm like, this guy just knows a lot of things about about traditional things. So I'm like, is this something that you studied in school, outside of school, or what?
So I have a lot of informal education. I mean, if there is anything like that.
There is a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to any tertiary institution, at least as at now. I'm not part of any tertiary institution, and I do say that that is largely from a place of non-conformity and rebellion.
As you don't
And
like to
but
conform to anything.
to be very honest, there's also a place of the Nigerian educational system,
Okay.
because I don't think there's any child who grows up in a conventional Nigerian home and says that, oh, when I'm done with secondary school, I don't want to go
Go to
to a
school anymore,
institution.
yeah.
Of course not. But then, when you have your first exam, you have your second exam, you have your third exam, and then, you are just getting struck out for no reasons or because, oh, you did not pay certain amount for runs in your exam center, and then you are just having F9 in all your papers, or worse still, your result is not even coming out.
Yeah.
And you find there's this thing about, oh, resilience and not giving up, but there's only a level of resilience you can maintain when you are from a low pyramid home or a low income home, and there's so much to there's not be only you then go spend money on now.
So is it that when you said you're not going to tertiary institution, it wasn't protested? Your parents did not say anything about it.
Yes, actually, because it was not, as at then, it was not exactly a permanent decision.
Okay.
As at then, it was just,
Is it a permanent one now?
well, I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
I wouldn't say so.
So you still might.
Yes, but I have a lot of anger against Nigerian educational system
See,
that I
if
haven't.
we start talking about that now, we'll be here for like a week.
I have a lot of anger that I haven't relaxed, and I'm
Well,
just looking
fair.
at you people just enjoy. And yes, I feel like we have a certificate syndrome in Nigeria.
Okay.
So I think now a lot of people have calmed down, maybe because of the point at which I am in my craft and career.
Okay.
But years ago, I would meet people who would tell me that, oh, you cannot amount to anything doing Yoruba poetry if you are not in a higher institution. At least go and study Yoruba in school and then have a degree, and then we'll know that, oh, you're
where
actually
are these people
serious
now?
with what you're doing.
Where are these people now?
And then most of them are older people that you cannot exactly tell them that, sir,
You
are
don't know what
talking
you're
the
saying.
rubbish.
Yeah.
So you just say, okay, sir, yes, sir. I mean, I remembered I once had an interview years ago, on a magazine where, the person asked about my education, and I was like, oh, I'm not furthering at the moment. And when the interview was going to come out, the headline was like, oh, dropout became dropout. It was something around dropout becoming, world renowned poet or something. And I was like,
You're not a
That choice
dropout if
of
you did not
word,
start.
that choice of word, I have a
I
problem
guess
with
it was
it.
just to get people's attention to it.
Actually, but in the same way, it actually says a lot
Yes.
about how we perceive people that we feel like, oh, they are outliers and all
Yeah.
of that. Because someone recently wrote
But
I am 8 thesis on my works, and it felt like one of the biggest things that has happened to me in the last few
they
years.
wrote what?
She had a master's thesis,
Okay,
and
okay.
then my
Okay.
work was practically a subject in University of Ibadan.
Wow.
And funny enough, she had her oral
Did
defense
she
today.
did she share it with you?
Yes,
Okay.
she had to definitely consult,
Yeah.
for audience reception and all of that. And it felt like one of the biggest things that has happened to me, because I remembered when I published my first novel, Shegilola, someone who I respected so much came to the launch, and then he called me out. He called me out like privately while the event was going on. I was like, oh, I appreciate what you do and all of that, but I feel like at some point in your life, you should consider going to, maybe even if you don't want to go to the regular school, maybe go to now and just have
I have a
something that
degree,
you can
yeah.
call a certificate. And yes, I don't have a problem with, going to these schools and then, actually sitting and learning and having a degree. But when you make me look like I'm going to fail or I'm going to be unsuccessful because I'm not in a
Because you're in
tertiary
a, yeah.
institution, then I have more reasons to actually prove you wrong.
Yeah.
That, there are people
I'm the one
who,
that just published the book. So
exactly,
what are you talking about?
I have every reason to prove you wrong that I can actually do this without being there.
Yeah.
Oh, it is a plus if I, ever decide to go into, the tertiary institution
But
and
I'm
learn.
actually curious as to how you then got really educated about some of the things that you draw a lot from in your work.
And then it's why I believe that in fact there are a lot of people who spend years in tertiary institution and they are still educated illiterate, to be very honest. And then there are some people who don't even have as much opportunity to pass through secondary schools and all of that, but they learn, because I feel like when we are done with the formal education, there's still so much to learn
To
from actual
learn.
realities. There's
Yeah.
still so much to learn from home. So until my father's death in 2020, I spent a lot of time with him, like all through my poetry career
So
till
sorry to
his
hear
death.
about that
Thank you
though.
so much. Na senior man go be for heaven like this. Sha. He was always going with me. There was no event I went for
Hmm.
since I started my poetry career that he didn't go
Yeah,
with
it didn't
me.
go with you.
Even if you have to travel outside the outside Lagos State,
Oh.
and spending time with him meant, learning a lot
Learning a
of
lot from
things
him.
from him,
Yeah.
things I would agree with, things I won't agree with, and then it's kind of shaped my thinking, it shaped my orientation, and then my mom didn't have any formal education.
Yeah.
But I do say it every time that she's one person that I've learned so much, even
Mm-hmm.
about how I relate with
Mm.
people or people that naturally the society would condemn. I learned so much
From
from
her.
her, and it's shaped my understanding when I meet or encounter people that regularly you will look at like, oh, this person does not have these resources, so they do
Mm.
not belong here, because I'm literally a
That
son of
person,
someone who
yeah.
you would classify
As someone that does not
as that.
belong, yeah.
And even with my work, so when I read my works to her in Yoruba, she understands what I am talking about as far as it is in Yoruba. But then there are still things in Yoruba that I have no knowledge about, that I
Okay.
still have to go to her to ask questions from. So would I say, oh,
Oh, really?
she's not educated at the end of the day? She is educated. It's not just the conventional
Yeah.
education
The
that we
the
know.
the education that we tag as real education. Yeah.
Exactly. And then, all of those, and the fact that I have a lot of older friends. So,
Okay. You
it's
learn a lot
heavily
from the people around
contributed
you.
to my truth, and I'm not alien to mistakes. I enjoy making mistakes
You enjoy.
so much. I want to know everything about everything. I spend a lot of time. I'm chronically online, watching anything, reading anything. When I finish buying suya and I finish eating the suya, I can spend time to read
Read what's on the paper.
because there's always some. I say it, read at least. Always try to consume something, even if it
Hmm.
is movie subtitle. Consume it. Don't just be a dumb bird. Consume something. There's always something to learn.
So you read anything and everything that
Yes,
you can lay your
and
hands on.
I saw one tweet few months ago that was like, before you discard any knowledge as being useless, retain that knowledge for 5 years. If
Mm.
after 5 years you don't have
Mm.
any reason to use
Yeah.
it or reference to it, then
Maybe
you
you can
can
call it
discard it.
useless. Okay.
Exactly. And really, there is nothing really useless at the end of the day. There's always,
Okay.
the universe always has a reason for pushing something your way.
I completely agree. So one of the things about your work, because I enjoy your work by listening to it, not because I fully understand it, right? See, look, my father is a Yoruba man.
Oh, wow.
I do not really understand the language like that. The little that I understand is based on what I just hear around me, and maybe a little bit of what was taught in school, very little.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was able to understand the
The
Ami and
title.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So besides that, I understand very little Yoruba, and I feel like your own Yoruba is deeper. Do you do your work in a particular dialect?
No, so I use the Yoruba Jumolo, which is the general Yoruba, the
Okay,
generally the Oyo Yoruba in
okay,
that sense, which is like the generally acceptable Yoruba, even for writings presently. But I do infuse dialect in my works. And most times when people say my works is deep
deep.
Yoruba, Ijinle Yoruba, I still meet older people who look at my works and they are like,
It's not
you did
that
not
deep.
say that proverb very
Very well,
well.
really.
Like, this is not how you should say it. But I feel like the reason why a lot of people say it is
Do you have
deep.
an example of a proverb that someone told you you did not say well?
Yes, yes. So there is this proverb that even in Yoruba movies, a lot of actors make the mistakes. They say tí ọ̀rọ̀ bá kan òkè tó kan ilẹ̀, ó níbi kan tá a máa ń gbé sí. And then I remember that I once used it in a walk. And then someone told me, I think it was in Ibadan then, an older man told me that it is
Yeah.
not kan ilẹ̀. Tí ọ̀rọ̀ bá kọ òkè tó kọ ilẹ̀, ó níbi kan tá a ń gbé sí. That means that if the matter at hand is rejected from above and
Okay.
is rejected from below, then there's always somewhere to put it. But the translation of what is popularly said
Yeah.
by a lot of people is, if a matter or a subject matter touches up and touches ground, there's always somewhere to put it, which doesn't make
Okay.
sense when you
Yeah.
now
Fair
sit and
enough.
think
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Fair
because
enough.
everyone says it's very
Yeah.
easy to just run with
People
it,
have already like gotten used to
popularized
like
it.
a
Exactly.
meaning of it. So like, okay, we know this proverb. This is probably what it means, and then they
Exactly.
run with it.
It's the same way why in most of my works I rarely use eje. I rarely say eje in my works. I say ikmo. And
Okay.
ikmo also means eje. Ikmo. Now ikmo means blood, but
Okay.
it takes its meaning from the color of blood, something that is red.
Red.
Ikmo, that is
Okay.
like another Yoruba name for blood.
Okay.
Eje. And then I prefer to use it in my works most times. I
Why?
prefer to use most of those works because I feel like, Eje is already popular. Everyone is already saying Eje. And I feel like for some people, my work is a point of learning. Like, some people don't even care about the message or whatsoever. They just want to learn new thing about the language and about their dialect.
Mm.
It's the same way a lot of people know cup. When you say cup in Yoruba, like, what is cup? They tell you, cup no ni. But cup is Ife.
Okay.
And if I now use it in a work, somebody will say,
Ah.
that is deep Yoruba. It is not deep.
It is what it's called.
It is what it is called. It's just because we are not saying it regularly anymore. That is why it
Yes.
feels like, oh, Ife, wow, that is poetic. No,
It
it
is
is
not.
not. That is the name.
This is so funny because then one way to look at this, okay, maybe the language to some extent has been watered down a
Mhm.
bit, and then the other aspect is so the thing is sometimes when you speak English with like a particular intonation, it kind of even almost sounds like Yoruba. And
Yes.
people then feel like, okay, this is probably what it is. So it's very funny
And
why you say that like that. Yeah.
I say it every time that when we stop using certain words, it's why I'm very big on call things their actual native
Yeah.
names. When we stop using certain words and we start using their English version,
Yeah.
we realize that in years to come we don't remember the actual name for that thing again, and we start now using, we now believe that it probably has no Yoruba name.
Yeah.
Fine, maybe there are things that they are not original to us as Yorubas. So if you tell me to find a name, I don't agree with people who call akara beans cake. Akara is not a cake. Akara is not a cake. Call akara akara. It's the same way why we now have the Ajayi Crowder argument this day. Eshu is not Satan. Because if we never attempted to translate Eshu in the first place, we will never have that issue. Eshu is Eshu. Olodumare is Olodumare. Olorun is not God. Olorun is Olorun. keep it the way it is. Fine, there are
Yes.
some words that already have that inverse, but even
Mm-hmm.
the words that now need this inverse and all of that, we
Mm-hmm.
don't use it.
Mm.
It is the word that it does not need. Now, when do you say what is table
Mm.
in Yoruba, they tell you table is tabili, but
Mm.
that is coinage, that is a
Mm-hmm.
diayalo. And
Yes.
while a diayalo is acceptable, table in itself is aga igbe nkan le. Aga
Okay.
igbe nkan le, aga, where you put, you literally put something on a table. But because nobody says aga igbe nkan le, it's the same way we have
Yeah.
chair as aga ijoko, the aga that you sit on. So if
Yeah.
chair is aga ijoko, then table is aga
Yeah.
igbe nkan le.
Mm.
But we don't remember table as aga igbe nkan le again, because we now say tabili, and some
Mm.
people don't even remember tabili. What some people say now is teburu, and it just keeps getting
Yeah.
worse, and before
And
you
the
know
language will
it,
just keep changing
the
somehow
language just
till
keeps saying, and then it's not
till it
saying
becomes another language.
you get,
Yeah.
and then we start saying that Yoruba does not have enough word. Yoruba does not have enough word, or you are not saying it enough.
This is very funny. This is look. I I watched the video that you did with Michael on whispers and growls. By the way, you
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to growl. You need to learn how to growl, please. Don't disgrace Yorubas
See
again.
finish.
Don't disgrace Yorubas again. Uh-huh. So those
My life, Michael, see what you have done.
is exactly what you've done. But I was going to ask you about writing about love, but then I was also interested because I said before, I do not really fully understand what you are talking about. I just feel it,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Watching that episode, and I know the poems that you broke down were about love and all of
Yes.
that, but based on the fact that I do not understand to a large extent exactly what you're saying in some of your poems, I can get an idea based on synopsis of your novels. But the poems themselves, I'm just wondering, what are the general themes you like to play around with? What are the themes that you like to explore in your poems?
I explore a lot of feminist related issues of marginalization, sexuality,
Mm.
like as vast as sexuality can be.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense, I'm not so much of a political poet. Lately, I've started exploring bigotry
Okay.
and the issues of segregation in my works. I'm very heavy on women related women related issues.
Why? Because it's like
I
something that comes across your two novels. So
Yes,
why?
I tell women stories a lot. I grew up in a home filled with women. I'm
Mm.
literally the only son,
Ah.
and that helped me, sadly, see through their realities.
Mm.
I mean, I can't relate with their realities, because at the end of the day, I'm not a woman, but I
Mm. You
was
can
able to
understand
see
them.
through their
Yeah.
realities, because I get to spend time with my sisters, and then because I grew up with women, I have a lot of friends that are women, and a lot of them sees me as a safe space, tell their stories, and then you get to, these are not even gist in the real sense at this point, because a lot of them can actually be extremely traumatizing,
Mm.
and all of that. And then when you go out as a man, you realize that as much as you don't want to be misogynistic or patriarchal, you cannot deny the fact that you still benefit from misogyny or patriarchy one way or the other.
Mm.
The society is heavily male dominated,
Yes.
and then there are some things that you've already left the place before it clicks in your head that, oh,
This is
what just
what
happened
happened.
here?
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of unlearning. And it's not just enough that we have women coming out to talk about assault and all of that. Of course, I don't believe that these things are limited to one gender. There are good women, there are bad women, there are good men, there are bad men. But at the end of the day, if we want accountability and we actually want to address this issue, then men actually have to call out men, beyond women just doing the calling out every time. And I just feel like, again, when I look at the pattern of my life and how I've gotten here, I feel like the universe had a reason for putting me in a home filled with women.
Okay.
I mean, a guy once accused me that I don't tell enough stories that has to do with men, and I wonder why. I wonder why he didn't just go on to write it. Then, like, if you feel someone is not telling a story, then
Why
tell
don't you
it.
tell it? And just out of curiosity, right? How often? Because it was quite interesting to have someone. Usually, what usually happens is that someone has written a poem, is the people that have read it, that see the value in it or whatnot, that then analyze it, do like some form of proper analysis, a critical analysis of the work. But seeing you do it yourself, I feel like someone reading and criticizing the work is different from the poet actually doing it by
Yes.
themselves. And I'm like, okay, how frequently do you do that? Do you think people looking at your work differently from how you've intended it is something that affects how you then write?
So you know there's this thing about the death of the author.
Yeah.
When you finish creating and the work is out,
Okay.
people interpret it
In
differently and
different
all of
ways,
that. And
yes.
until that encounter with Michael, I don't think I've ever been on a platform, where there are people who call me to discuss my novels or my poems, and in the course of conversation, I start telling them
Yeah,
that,
this
oh,
is
this is
what
what
you
I intend to
intended.
do.
Yeah.
But on such a large scale, it has never happened before.
I think
And
you did almost line by line.
yes,
Yeah.
actually, and it's changed something in me. I would actually love to do it often. Maybe not necessarily on my own platform because I can be
Yeah.
very lazy. But if someone ever has that kind of platform and they actually need the creative to analyze their works, it feels like fun, actually.
If we
And
had the time, we would have done it. I actually thought, okay, maybe one of your poems, but I'm like, we need to
mhm,
have a conversation. So yeah, continue.
I enjoyed doing it so much, and I feel like for the first time it helped actually bring everything I have in my head to mind, and the fact that of course it does not stop the reader from still translating
In
these
their own
works in
way.
their own way. But I feel seen beyond the work. The process of the work feels seen, and the mind of the creative actually feels seen, and does not really give so much room for assumption. It felt beautiful.
Just so you know, whilst we were, I think, speaking before, one of the people in the studio actually asked because she's Igbo, right? She was like, "How about us? We that do not understand the language, how we then?" So I know there are lots of people that will probably, because of the cadence of your work, because of the rhyme pattern or the way you are even performing it, to be like, "Oh, I really want to know what this is about." Because analyzing your work and then getting people to actually understand what you're saying, it unlocks a different door. For me, what really kept me in it, because of course I already enjoyed the performance, I already watched the performance, then seeing exactly what it meant, what the words meant. And when it comes to what you drew on, when it comes to the metaphysical, the cosmic, all of that, don't worry, we'll talk about it. But just getting to understand the gravity and the depth of what you were writing, there are people that would also want to feel something like that. And I'm like, okay, is this something you are bothered about? Is this something that, okay, maybe I want more people to be able to understand my work as I really intend for them to understand it?
So when I delved into Yoruba, one of my biggest fear was, oh, I am going to limit
Yeah.
audience, because people were saying it to my ears, and it was something and over the years I've worked. I think my first ever collaboration was actually with a South African artist. She didn't understand my language, I didn't understand her language,
Yeah.
and what we even ended up creating, a lot of people do not understand it
Mm.
collectively. And then I meet people a lot of time who still ask me, are you translating your novels,
Mm-hmm.
your poem? We are feeling left out. But
Yeah.
again, I've come to realize that maybe it's a pain I have to accept. And life is cold at the end of the day. I feel like if you do not encounter the work in the language, you
Yeah.
would encounter it in the cadence, or
Yeah.
the rhythm. And it's one of the reasons why I try as much as possible to tell stories that are not just limited to the Yorubas, but stories that interconnect everyone's reality. So I'm
Yeah.
not telling stories of the Yoruba people. I'm
Hmm.
telling the stories of people
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah.
And why I sit with you performance poetry in the last few years, and I actually see myself creating more immersive performance poetry that entails, music, drama, choreography, even down to visual art, in such a way
Mm-hmm.
that when you are watching my works in few years from now, it's not just the language that is the means of communication.
Mm-hmm.
You are getting the message through the music. You are
Mm.
getting the message through,
So
the
basically,
visual
you're
art.
feeling the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one thing I intend to do with performance poetry in the next few years to come. But of course, a lot of structure has to be in place, and I believe so much in following the process than just rushing and doing something that you won't be able to sustain in a few years to come. So maybe when that happens, it would definitely open up more rooms. And for people who, at the end of the day, still can't find a balance and all of that, life is unfair.
They should go to other
Life is
poets.
unfair.
The ones that
Life,
are writing
life
in the
is
language
unfair.
they know.
And yes, there are a lot of
Yeah,
English authors already. There are so many
actually.
people. Just enter a bookstore.
I actually feel like to a large extent, just listening to you break down your work, it's that even if this is done in English, it's very nuanced,
Yes,
right? So even if you do not fully understand the culture, you then you cannot fully understand the poem. Yeah, you would get an idea of what the poem, what you're talking about, but to fully understand it and be immersed in what you're talking about, then the person has to be very conversant with the culture that
absolutely.
influences it. So how much, I don't know, is this something, I don't know if it's something, it's one way or the other influence your work, but how much of it influences your work? Because I know you also still talk about general life things, and when you talked about marginalization of women and all of that, how much of the culture, maybe Ifa and different aspects of your life and the world or the universe, maybe even horoscopes as well, influence your work?
So when you write in any language, you cannot detach yourself from the culture. And I say it every time that there's a place of cultural eggshells and sensitivity in these writings. Okay, an instance was a poem I wrote a few years back for a performance I ran in Ibadan, DLDR. And then, the poem was about assault.
Mm,
And it was about assault and how we perceive women.
mm-hmm.
And I wrote a line there that, ní ayé ìgbàanì tí wọ́n bá pe obìnrin lájẹ́, òkò ni wọ́n máa ń sọ pa wọ́n, which literally translates to back then when women were called witches,
Mm-hmm.
people automatically throw stones at
Yeah.
them, set them on fire. Then Sir Babatunde Odunlade, he is a successful, textile artist and all of that in Ibadan, and even across Nigeria, to be very honest. He was one of my audience at the event. I literally used the space. And he called me afterwards while we were doing one of the rehearsals. And he was like, no, you are telling the story from the Western ideology.
Mm.
So back then in the Yoruba space, if someone actually has the audacity to point out that this person is a witch, no one has the audacity to go to the person's house the next day and then throw stones at her and you all set them on fire, because there's a place of fear.
Mm.
But
Yes.
when we are telling these stories, we are largely thinking in English
Yes.
language.
Where they used to
Even when
burn
we
their
are
witches.
writing in
Yeah.
indigenous language,
Yeah.
there was fear, there was respect for the
Yes.
people that we actually call Aje in the Yoruba ideology. It was the witches in the Western ideology that, you will now throw stones at and all of that. So it's very important to, even while writing in the language, you have to start thinking in the
In the
language.
language.
And by thinking in the language, it keeps you culturally safe and you are able to honor the culture. So you don't end up telling an English story
Mm-hmm.
using Yoruba language.
Yes. It's very funny because I was actually going to ask you about translating your novels and all of that, but then I thought, why? Since since I think the purpose for you is also to preserve the culture that goes with the language, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? Let me not ask that question because it's already an obvious answer because it's you believe it's your purpose to,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I like the way you harp on feminism and how you approach it. And this is something I have very little knowledge on. But I wanted to ask you about the philosophy of Oshoronga or something like that. I don't know.
Yes.
I know very little about it, but it's something that has influenced your view on life, and it's something you feel very close to. You take it very dear to your life. So I actually want to know more about that and how it also seeps into your work.
So, again, it brings us back to Aje. And
Yeah.
when I grew up watching a lot of Ajileye's movie. Ajileye
Yeah.
was one of those earliest
The
Yoruba
filmmakers.
filmmakers,
Yeah.
when you hear Kote Aye and all of
Mm.
those scary movies
Yeah.
back then. They were always on
Were the ones,
witchcraft.
yeah.
But the problem I had with those movies, I didn't have the problems then anyway. But growing up, the problems I had with those movies, especially rewatching them now,
Yeah.
it's always a contest of white against black. So it's always Islamic clerics and pastors fighting against traditional worshippers and witches, and at the end of the day, conquering them. So witches were portrayed
Yes.
in these movies as, wicked women, old women
Yes.
that their children are no longer visiting and they are just killing people in the village. And it's just
Bitter
weird.
women that are just looking for a way to take it
Bitter
out of
women.
people. Yeah.
And it's just weird. Like, bro, not be like this now. Like, no. Maybe I've
Yeah.
even been a witch in my past life self. I don't know at this point.
Maybe.
Because the way I come to their defense. But, when you look at the idea of Oshoronga and,
Okay.
what it actually stands for on the breakdown level, you realize that this is a collective of women who feels like, oh, they deserve a voice in the society. They deserve to have a voice, they deserve to have a say in the politics of their society, in family issues, in the things that goes on. And because they feel, even the coronation system is already heavily male dominated. Okay, let's create a society of ours. See, it was so deep rooted back then that when a woman is accused of paternity fraud, it is not men that will call her and ask her that, did you sleep with another man or no? No,
It's
they will
women.
send her to this
Yeah.
council of women
Yeah.
for the women to speak with her. Did you actually do that? Why did you do that? And then, they would be the one to come back with feedback because they could be more empathetic
Yeah,
towards their
to the
gender and
gender, yeah.
understand issues related to women. But because, of course, again, patriarchy and misogyny is as old as man. And I say it every time that whether you like it or not, it is there in the Yoruba culture. As much as the Yoruba culture and Isheshe respect women and tells us to, honor women, there's also a ever sprinkle of misogyny somewhere in there. So, it got to a point where men started feeling threatened. And we know how that goes.
Yeah.
So when you go to Ife, for example, a lot of people do not know that there's actually been, at a point in Ife, there's been a female Ooni in Ife, Luwo Gbagida. But why do we not have any other female ruler as an Ooni in Ife since Luwo Gbagida? She was literally demonized in history as a tyrant, as someone who was blood-sucking. But when you go into actual history, that is not the truth.
What's the truth?
That is not the truth. So the problem with Luwo Gbagida was that, Luwo Gbagida was said to be this person that, if you commit a crime, whether you are a son of, a commissioner or you are a son of the Bashorun next door, you are literally getting the same punishment as a common guy would get. And then, that was where we have the Awo Luwo, where they will actually go out and lay marbles. They would, depending on the gravity of your crime, you will be sent out on the streets or in the palace to lay marbles and spend days doing those bricklaying works. That by the time you are done with it and you get home, you will know never to commit that level of crime. So they were labor intensive punishments. But of course, there were people who felt slighted because of this, like, oh, even if you are doing this to common men, why are you doing this to son of the nobles? And then by the time, and even getting on the throne, when you look at the historical breakdown and all of that, it was a lot of struggle. Like, why are we having a woman as Oni in Ife? And now it's years after. Some people do not even know that there has ever been a female ruler in Ife. And for those who know, a lot of them believe that, oh, she was a tyrant, she's a terrible person, and that is why no woman should ever rule. But that is not the truth. And I believe that women are the sources. I believe that, when you disrespect the source, it tells so much on the society and it tells so much on the adverse effects of the society, and then we keep complaining of chaos. You cannot keep disrespecting nature and expect nature to embrace you. So at the end of the day, I have a lot of unlearning to do. I do not try. The fact that I tell these stories, I do not even tell these stories accurately always. I only try because at the end of the day, I cannot tell the story of a woman menstruating the way a woman would tell that story. But I can try. And maybe that attempt is what counts. And yes, that attempt also, earns one's reward, like, oh, he's a simp. Oh, he's pandering to them. Oh,
have people accused you of pandering?
Yes, a lot. I have, my ears are full. My
Honest,
ears are full.
honestly, even regular creators, as long as they are doing something that maybe speaks against men's behaviors towards women and they defend women in one way or the other, they'll say you're pandering. And
Hmm.
this one word that just keeps going on and on. And they throw it around
I
a
mean,
lot.
someone told me when he read my second book, Ishekwe, and it was like, oh, I've noticed that in your two
Yeah,
books,
you are
you
right
explore
about
women's stories and,
yeah,
issues of assault. And as much as these women are praising you, I know that the day you would explore a story that has to do with males being heavily abused, or, a book that focuses on male
yeah.
being abused by, a
A
woman,
woman, yeah.
women will come for you and they will drag you to fields that day and nobody will defend you. And you see, this whole survival defense mentality is just problematic. Like, it's not a contest. Men are getting abused every
Yeah.
day. Women are getting abused every day.
Yeah.
The job of a storyteller is to tell the story that
Yeah.
suits him perfectly. It's not a contest. Why do we see it as a case of, when a woman comes out to say she has been raped by a man, then you see a man comes out and say, even I was raped when I was 5 years old. Did I ever talk about it? Did he ask you not to talk about it? No. This whole idea of trying to be
Yeah.
the exception
Yeah,
in the
it
room,
becomes like a competition.
it's
Who
not a
they suffer pass.
competition. Like, it's not a competition.
Yeah.
You see certain tweets by men, they say, oh, men has come. Then somebody comes out to say, oh, including your father. No,
That is not
context.
that is not the
That is
conversation we're
literally
having.
you
Yeah.
shifting the goalpost.
Yeah. Anyway, see.
God, I beg. God, I beg.
So the thing is, it's not like Nigerians do not understand there are nuances to conversations and contexts,
Mm-hmm.
right? They just want to diminish what you are
Agenda
saying.
must agenda.
You just want to say that, oh, what you are saying does not make sense. Oh, what you are saying is one sided. I'm like, what I'm saying is not the entirety of it, but I'm saying what I'm saying, and it is not a
Exactly.
lie.
And it is your truth.
Exactly. Where do I even want to go to from here? Yeah. So I can round this up as quickly as possible. I know you to do your work in Yoruba, especially your novels. I feel like I've said this like 1 billion times already on this maybe 1 hour that we've been on. But you recently did the Afrobeat Rebellion spoken word competition and
Yes.
you did it in English.
Yes.
When I saw that video, I'm like, why? Why? Are there times that maybe when it comes to competitions, you have to do it in English because the competition requires for you to do it in English? Is that what it is?
Yes, and I still do English performances. Actually,
Okay.
the funny thing is just that one, they are not as much as
The Yoruba.
my Yoruba performance, and strangely, it is always the English performances that the videos never comes out.
It's the Yoruba
You
ones.
just don't
Yeah.
understand why the cinematographer decided not to release the video, and then people just go on my page and say, I see people reach out to me and they are like, can you perform in English? Yes, I can perform in English now. But I went through your page and
That
it's
was
only
just
Yoruba that is
yeah.
there. Are you sure you can even speak English?
Please.
And then
I think maybe one of the things that you might need to do is maybe have someone in the audience so just see, please just let me record.
yes,
this
actually,
thing.
especially
And
if the person
yeah,
is using Android.
see, that's how to come out looking like there was dust in the air. But okay, okay,
And the
yeah,
funny thing about that Orabami contest was that
yeah,
there was actually a poem I did in the in the run of the contest that was a Yoruba poem. But again, the cinematographer decided not to release it. And the
okay,
video that they decided to release was, an English poem. But I think in a way it still speaks about versatility.
okay.
And it gives room, when I entered for the Orabami contest, I actually did it because I wanted to see how rusted I've become with English
With
language.
English,
Like,
yeah,
can I still try against poets that all their life
they've
they
been
are doing
writing
English
English,
poems,
yeah.
and actually winning feels like, oh, maybe I try small.
When you win, is it based on yes, I've pocketed this money, or is okay,
Nah,
I feel good about it?
nah, actually. So one, I for Orabami, I entered Orabami because one, I wanted to actually see if I've become rusted with English poems, and two, it was about Fela, it was rebellion.
Yeah,
And most of my works are largely rebellious. So
yeah.
I felt like, okay, this is something I am
Let me,
passionate about. Let me jump on this cause. So
yeah,
even if I don't win at the end of
yeah.
the day, at least I would express my truth in a room where anyone who is coming for that kind of event already
Yeah.
knows what to expect. And it doesn't feel like you are performing to an audience that is raising an eyebrow, like, why is he saying something like this? So of course the money is important.
Of course.
Of course, the money is important because they are already saying that poets are broke people who
Is it
are
true
always
though?
moving around with tote bags.
Is it true?
Well, I disagree. In 2026, in big 2026, where there is IB Quake, where there is Afi,
Yeah. Yeah.
where there's Toby Abiodun, where there's Gemini. Okay, I may not be a billionaire yet.
Yeah. No, but on a general level, what is it like?
It can actually get better.
Yeah.
It can actually get better in terms of appreciation, like
Yeah.
financial. There are still events who still, and I find it weird that there are still events who still call poets in this age and tell them that we are giving you a platform. I find it very, very weird. I find it very, very weird. And it just boils
If
down
you do not
to
need them, why are you inviting them?
you are the freaking platform.
Yeah.
It just boils down to knowing your worth at the end of the day as a poet. Of course, there are events that I would go to without collecting
Yeah.
a pay because I want to. Not because
Yeah.
you tell me that, oh, you are giving me a platform or there's
Yeah.
nothing you want to give me.
Is it something that when you hear that, even if you wanted to do it before, would you then?
Yes, actually, because some people even say it in a very largely disrespectful way.
Yeah.
They've been giving me platforms since 2017. I've not blown. Which platform do you want to give me now? Okay, give me money.
Oh my god, I don't know. See, when it comes to the arts and performance arts, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of okay, this is already your passion. Why are you collecting money for
You
it and
call
all of
MC
that?
for events, you give him money. You call sound
Yeah.
engineer, is the poet that should now come. Maybe it's just 3 minutes, 4 minutes poem now. If it's easy, go and write it. Go and write. I would rather sit in my house for 2 months. Because even if you don't have the money, yeah, there are event planners that genuinely do not have this money. But like, let the creative feel respected. Let them feel
I
honored
feel like
enough.
they have that money, man. I
Actually,
feel like they have that
actually,
money.
I feel like you have that money though.
So I should pay you for coming.
Oh God.
But yeah, it's just something I like to think about, especially when people in the way I want to say it, I don't think I should, but in 2026 in Nigeria and the economic reality that we're facing is something about okay, a young person that is getting into it, would it be wise for them to then focus 100% on it? Because even writers, all right, not even poets or
Mm-hmm.
performance arts, right? Even regular writers, they have like a 9 to 5 job or a career that they have, and then this one is on the side. So even if I don't know make a lot of money from this, I also have this just so I can survive and all of that. I'm just wondering, I usually just wonder, is it a wise idea for you to do this in 2026 as a young creative?
So I will say it as honest as I can be. I'm a
Yeah.
full-time artist, but
Yeah.
I don't advise any young creative to go out and sit all out with
Yeah.
full-time art presently, especially when you know that it's not like you have someone bankrolling you that you can
Yeah.
roll out projects and promote it on that scale because you will suffer. Fine, your tribe will find you at the end of the day, but because before your tribe finds you,
Yeah.
you sef fit don loss. You will suffer. Oh God. Oh God. It
Oh
always
my
pays
god.
off in the end.
In the end.
Especially when you're resilient and you know what you're doing. But if
Yeah.
not everyone will have the thick skin. So if
Yeah.
you don't have the thick skin, go and find 9 to 5. Go and find 9 to 5. If not, if you enter my DM and ask me to borrow you urgent 2K, I will not reply
Do you
you.
get those?
I mean, no one is beyond it really.
Actually.
Creatives,
Actually.
you see
Actually.
creatives go to events, people clap for them,
Yeah.
deep, amazing. And then when the event is done, they are looking for somebody to tag along because they know that their
Yeah.
transport fare cannot be complete. And it's
Yeah.
sad.
Hmm.
It's horrifying to watch because you see
Yeah.
extremely talented creatives who cannot go to a studio to record their work. Not because they don't want to record it, but because they don't have the money to pay the studio for an hour session.
And I feel like internationally, artists like we have here, they're usually more appreciated here.
Yes.
So even when I don't know where I saw it. I can't remember, but it was a lady that decided to leave Nigeria to go. I don't know which of the countries, and she's living a life as a
Why do
writer,
you think
100%.
why do you think a lot of artists are applying for global talent visa now?
Exactly.
Everybody wants to run, and then we keep talking about migration and the effect of migration on literature. Leave the effect of migration. Let the artist survive
And
first.
it's such a problem because this is our story, and I feel like it's maybe see finish that is causing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel like, okay, this is something we're familiar with, this is our person and all of that, then this person should do it for free, or they like to form like there's no value in what you're doing. And it's very hypocritical because we then glorify what is coming internationally, and what's I would see as more colorful is then more appreciated there. And it's just a very interesting dynamic that I feel like is really sad because this is our culture.
It
If
is.
if we do not hype it and appreciate it the way it should be, other people would then misconstrue it in ways that it might not even be appropriate.
You're right. You are absolutely right, and it's sad that it's already a nightmare that
Yeah.
we have to live with. I'm not an optimistic person who would say, "Oh, I hope it gets better," but I hope it gets better. But if it does not get better, run! Oh, take off your shoes and run.
Okay. So when we don't spend the rest of the day here, let's just
And
wrap
just
it up.
before you
Yeah.
wrap up, I was going to
Yes.
give you this, even though the problem is now how
Yes.
you will read it, but
Thank you very much. So I have a copy of Ishekwe, right? So
just
let me open it. See. I hope you signed it.
I didn't, but I will sign it later on.
So after collecting, I want to attempt reading because I've already started the side. Let me Idukwe.
Okay.
That's appreciation. What's the
Yes.
appreciation coming at the beginning?
Now for
Anyway,
back, you will put that.
anyway, Ìṣọ̀lá wulẹ̀ máa ń sọ pé
Mm-hmm.
ènìyàn tí a bá ń ṣe ní ọ̀rẹ́
Ore. Yep.
oore tí kò dúpẹ́
Tí kò dúpẹ́.
tí kò dúpẹ́ bí a bá ṣe ẹni tọ̀hún láburú kò ní bínú. Ọ̀rọ̀ yìí náà lọ tàbí hold on. Ọ̀rọ̀ yìí náà ló ta mí ní ìpà nínú tí abala ìdúpẹ́ yìí fi di dandan. Full stop. How did I do? Over
Mm,
10. Over 10.
over 10. Because I'm nice.
No, don't be nice. Be nice. Be nice. Over
Okay.
10.
So I think that for a non, should I even call you a non-Yoruba? No, you are not a non-Yoruba. Is that your dad is
Please.
Yoruba? So you are not a
That's
non-Yoruba.
on paper.
For a half Yoruba, your knowledge of the tonal mark is
Yeah.
actually like apparent, and I think it kind
Okay.
of help. Like I know people who are like
Yeah.
Yoruba, and they still tell you they
Yeah.
don't understand the tonal mark. So that is
Really.
like me giving you 5, 5.5. I don't
Okay.
want to give you 6.
So
You
let's
know,
call that 7. Yeah, 7 over 10. So my reading is 7 over 10. Anyway,
with that Yoruba that is
please,
sounding
it
like
is
Russian
7
Yoruba.
over 10.
Edukpe. But
It's
that was
7 over
actually a good push at
it's
it.
7 over 10. I don't know in terms of because I don't finish reading this. I don't know if there's because I think one of the things that you'd like to see happen, I believe, is for Yoruba to be treated the way English is treated in schools. Because I feel like this army, it
Mm-hmm.
was in school that I learned it. Basically, I think primary school, and I feel like I don't know if they do take it seriously these
They don't
days.
actually, because I learned on
Yeah.
Google.
Uh-huh. You learned it on Google.
That is how bad it was. They did not. In fact, my Yoruba teacher was very inconsistent in secondary school.
Really?
I learned on Google.
That's interesting. I don't know if you're doing anything in terms of, you know, a movement, or do you plan on doing like a movement to have Yoruba being taught in schools the way English is taught?
So, we already have this digital age of advent of online Yoruba teachers these days and all
Yeah.
of that. But when it comes to schools,
Yeah.
particularly, I've not been doing so much with children art. But for the next few years, I actually want to learn how to write children's stories and children art generally, because I feel like even if I want to push these works, of course there's room for secondary school children to read these works, but for the children at the basics, it has to be more lighter than this. But I want to be able to put out comics, put out works in Yoruba language that are suitable for children, and then we can now push with all kind of coconut
That they should be
headedness
able to
to
read
these
this
people. And I
thing.
hope that
Yeah.
again, it's not my work enough to do. I hope that other people within their capacity and agencies
Yeah.
actually rise and do something. It's much easier to do these works when it's a
Yeah,
collective than just a
yes.
voice in the room.
I completely agree. Anyway, thank you very much for
You're
this book
welcome.
and for coming on the podcast and being an official first guest. Where's that shirt?
Aw.
I've been an official first guest. But yeah, let me wrap this up. How do I do that? So thank you very much for coming. It was such an interesting conversation we
Thank you
had.
for having me.
I know there are some questions I want to ask, but we cannot be here till tomorrow. So
We'll discuss it in the community.
exactly. Inside joke, by the way. Anyway, so this episode you can watch it on YouTube. It's also on Spotify. There'll be clips of this on TikTok and on Instagram, maybe Twitter. I'm not so sure yet. Like, follow, share, comments. So at the back of the camera, we have Big Sam, Onye, Christabel, and Savior that helped put all this together. Setting this up was a whole thing. Thank you very much for helping me with that. So yeah, that is that for that. Till the next episode where I believe I must also have a guest. So yeah. Bye.